1983, rural Virginia, the Blue Ridge Mountains, about 2 hours southwest of Washington, D.C. There's a facility tucked in the woods outside of a town called Faber. It's quiet, rolling hills, farmland, the kind of place you go to get away from everything. Inside the facility, there's a room. The room is dark. 20 people are lying on individual mattresses, blankets pulled up, stereo headphones on. Nobody's moving. For the first 5 minutes, you hear coughs, rustling, somebody shifts positions, then nothing. 40 minutes of absolute silence. No drugs, no hypnosis, no electrodes. But then comes the sound. Specifically, a set of audio frequencies being played in each ear at slightly different pitches. The frequencies are designed to synchronize the left and the right hemispheres of the brain. And once they do, according to the people running the facility, your consciousness separates from your body. You leave, you go somewhere else. The participants call it clicking out. The people running the program call it the gateway experience. Civilians are paid $850 a week to be there. But lying on those mattresses, right next to them, are active duty U.S. Army intelligence officers sent there on classified orders. It's funded through the intelligence community accounts specifically designed to hide the Army's involvement. Their commanding officers back at Fort Meade have been told that this training will enhance the soldiers' ability to physically relax and mentally concentrate during remote viewing. It's like psychic spying. The Army's sending people to learn how to leave their bodies and gather intelligence from other dimensions. And nobody in Congress knows about it. Nobody in the press knows about it. And the classified report that explains why the Army thinks this works is one of the strangest documents the US government has ever produced. It concludes that human consciousness can transcend space and time, that the universe is a hologram, that out-of-body experiences are real and achievable, and that the US military should train people to do it. This is a formal intelligence assessment written by a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army dated June 9th, 1983. It's stamped classified. It's submitted up the chain of command. It was declassified through the Freedom of Information Act of 2003, but when it came out, a page was missing, page 25. The CIA said they didn't have it, and for 18 years, every FOIA request was denied. Want to know what it said? I'm John Genoa, and you're watching America's Strangest History. This is the gateway process. Stay with me. 1958, Westchester County, New York, Robert Monroe. He's a radio broadcasting executive, runs a program that produces syndicated radio programs out of New York. Successful guy, married, kids, nice house in the suburbs. His company's doing well enough that he's got an R&D division experimenting with sleep learning techniques. They're playing audio tapes to people while they sleep to see if the information sticks. And believe it or not, it's pretty standard corporate research for the late 50s. Then Monroe volunteers as his own test subject, and something happens that he can't explain. He starts having episodes. He's lying down, relaxed, and suddenly feels a powerful vibration running through his entire body. Now, it's not a muscle spasm. This is a vibration like an electrical current. It happens again and again. He thinks he's having seizures. He goes to the doctor, full workup, nothing's wrong. He goes to a neurologist, nothing's wrong. The vibrations keep coming, and then one night in 1958, it goes further. Moore's lying in bed, the vibration hits, and he feels himself floating out of his own body. He looks down, he can actually see himself lying there. Now he panics, crashes back down into his body. It happens again the next week, and then the week after that. Now he's terrified. He thinks he's dying. He thinks he's going insane. So he goes to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist tells him he's perfectly sane, and Monroe does what any engineer does. He starts keeping a notebook. Every single experience documented, date, time, physical sensations, what he saw, how long it lasted, how he got back. We're looking at hundreds of entries over the next several years. He's not meditating. He's not on drugs. He's not following any special tradition. He's a businessman in Westchester County having spontaneous out-of-body experiences and writing it down like lab reports. In 1971, he publishes a book, Journeys Out of the Body. He coins the term right there, out-of-body experience. Before Monroe, there wasn't even a secular word for it. You had astral projection from the occult tradition, and you had religious language about the soul leaving the body. Monroe gives it a clinical name, and the book sells. But here's what distinguishes Monroe from every other person who's ever claimed to leave their body. He doesn't start a religion or write a manifesto. He goes back to the R&D lab, and he tries to figure out the mechanism. In fact, his team's been working with audio signals for sleep learning research, and they knew the brain responds to sound frequencies. Monroe's been experimenting with something specific, binaural beats. You play one frequency in the left ear, you play a slightly different frequency in the right ear. The brain perceives a third frequency. It's the difference between the two, and the brain tries to match it. Both hemispheres start synchronizing. Monroe calls this technology Hemi-Sync. short for hemispheric synchronization. He gets a patent for it in 1975. He discovers that by layering and sequencing specific frequency combinations, he can guide a person through progressive states of consciousness and with reproducibility. And remember, he's doing this not through meditation or through years of practice. He uses sound. So in 1974, Monroe takes his R&D division and turns it into something bigger, the Monroe Institute for Applied Sciences. He sets it up in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, Faber, Virginia. He builds a training center and starts running a program called Gateway. Now here's how it works. You show up on a Saturday night, you leave the following Saturday at noon, 7 days. You sleep in a private booth they call a check unit. Controlled Holistic Environmental Chamber. It's basically a padded enclosure with a mattress and headphones. Every day you do a series of guided exercises using Monroe's Hemi-Sync tapes. The exercises take you through progressive levels they call focus states. Focus 3, basic hemispheric synchronization. Focus 10, expanded awareness. Focus 15, no time. Focus 21, other energy systems, whatever that means. By the early 80s, the Gateway programs run over 3,000 exercises with around 2,000 participants. The Institute's got a board of advisors that includes psychiatrists, physicists, psychologists, biochemists. They're publishing a newsletter called The Explorer. They're collecting participant reports, they're cataloging experiences, they're tracking outcomes, and the reports? Curious. Participants describe profound relaxation, vivid imagery, a sense of leaving your physical body. Now, some describe communicating with what they call interior guides. Some describe perceiving events at distant locations. A psychiatrist is on staff, Stuart Twenlow from the VA hospital in Topeka. He reports that intensive use of those tapes produced what he calls a psi-conducive state with numerous examples of a form of telepathic sharing of mental experiences. Got that? Two people who don't know each other, lying in separate booths, reporting the same imagery at the same time. If you're a layperson hearing this in 1980, you think it's interesting, maybe a little weird, probably nonsense. But if you're an intelligence officer at Fort Meade, Maryland, you think something completely different. And why does Army intelligence care what a radio executive in Virginia is doing with sound waves? Well, because of the Russians. 1972, the Defense Intelligence Agency commissions a classified report. The subject is Soviet research into psychic phenomena for military and intelligence applications. The report concludes that the Soviet Union is actively funding laboratory research into telepathy, psychokinesis, and remote perception. They've got institutes. They've got budgets. They've got scientists publishing in state-sponsored journals. The Soviets believe that human consciousness can be weaponized, and they're spending real money trying to figure out how. Now, if you've watched this channel for a hot minute, you know what happens next. It's the same shtick that drove MK Ultra. We did a whole series on MK Ultra sub-projects. Check it out if you get a chance. But the institutional reasoning is identical. If the enemy's doing it, we have to do it. If the Soviets are developing psychic capabilities for espionage, the United States military can't afford to fall behind. And it doesn't matter if the generals personally believe in it. It doesn't even matter if the science is shaky. What matters is that the other side thinks it works. And that's enough to open the checkbook. So the Army establishes a program. It goes through several code names over the years: Gondola Wish, Grill Flame, Center Lanes, Shun Streak. Eventually it's called STARGATE, but in the late 70s, early 80s, we're in Grill Flame era. And the operational unit is called DET-G, Detachment G. Housed at Fort Meade, Maryland, their job is remote viewing. Psychic spying. A remote viewer sits in a controlled environment, relaxes, and attempts to perceive a target location using nothing but their mind. So no satellite imagery, no signals intelligence, no assets on the ground, just good old-fashioned consciousness. And the Army needs to figure out how to make it work better. Enter First Lieutenant Frederick Holmes Atwater, Army Intelligence, training officer for Detachment G. Atwater's job is to find methods that improve the remote viewer's performance. He's evaluating everything: meditation techniques, biofeedback, sensory deprivation, and somebody tells him about a facility in Virginia where a former radio executive is using audio technology to put people into altered states of consciousness with reproducible results. August 12, 1980, Robert Monroe calls Atwater at home. It's approximately 2100 hours, 9 p.m. An Army intelligence training officer is getting phone calls at his house from the founder of a consciousness research institute. Monroe tells Atwater he's been contacted by a lieutenant colonel named Jim Shannon from the Army Public Affairs Office in Los Angeles. Shannon wants Monroe to participate in a conference about something called the First Earth Battalion, which is Shannon's proposal to train soldiers in martial arts, meditation, and what he calls the strength of love. It's a way to provide the U.S. with defense against overwhelming odds. Yeah, Atwater writes it up, files the memo, but that's not why Monroe called. Monroe's real question is whether Atwater wants to attend a Gateway seminar in September, a reunion session for people who'd been in the program for the past 2 years. Monroe tells Atwater that he'd be able to talk to around 20 graduates and evaluate the effects of the training through personal contact. Atwater's interested, and the relationship between the U.S. Army and the Monroe Institute is now operational. By April 1982, it's on paper. We have the classified memo. April 21st, 1982, memorandum. Subject, advanced individual training for Detachment G personnel. Classification, secret, no foreign. That's not releasable to foreign nationals. The memo is from the project manager of Grill Flame. And here's what it says. Detachment G will begin advanced individual training for selected remote viewing personnel with the Monroe Institute Gateway Voyage program. Initial training will be conducted at a 7-day seminar at the Monroe Institute for Applied Sciences in Faber, Virginia. Now, Detachment G personnel will be intermixed with members of the general public who attend this seminar. So, Army intelligence officers sitting in the Gateway sessions right next to civilians who have no idea they're sharing a mattress room with military spies. And here's something interesting. Funding for the training will be from the ICF, Intelligence Community Funds, in the amount of $850 total for one individual. The memo specifically states that the use of ICF precludes identification of Grill Flame personnel to the Army finance personnel normally involved in travel processing. Now, translation, they're using intelligence slush funds so that the Army's own accounting people can't see what they're paying for. And there's more. There's a separate memo from the same month. April 13th, 1982, individual training requirements for a remote viewer identified only as Joe. It's from the command psychologist, Lieutenant Colonel Hartzell, to Detachment G director. It lays out the expected results of Monroe training for Joe. Improved ability to relax and concentrate, better ability to manipulate internally produced imagery, and this is a direct quote from the memo, Joe's needs to be with others of like philosophical and intellectual belief. So they're sending a psychic spy to summer camp. But the best part of this memo is the handwritten notes in the margins. Someone, presumably the Detachment G director, scrawled notes all over it. Next to the suggestion that the director, Atwater, Joe, and the psychologist all visit Monroe together, somebody writes, overkill? Next to the part about transferring Monroe technology to Detachment G, someone writes, shouldn't we decide what Joe should have? And at the bottom of the page, in block capitals, don't we wish this to appear as individual interest, not sponsored by the Army? Did you catch that? They want it to look like these soldiers are going to the Monroe Institute on their own time out of personal curiosity, not on orders, not on the Army's dime. The U.S. Army is sending intelligence officers to a consciousness research facility in rural Virginia to learn how to leave their bodies. It's funded through classified accounts. They're hiding it from their own finance departments. They're making sure it looks like nobody told them to go. And then they ask one of their officers to write a report explaining why all of this is scientifically justified. That officer is Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonnell, and what he puts on paper is going to make everything we've just been talking about look like a warm-up. June 9th, 1983, Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell submits a document to the U.S. Army Operational Group Command Staff. The title is Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. 29 pages, 38 numbered sections. His assignment is pretty straightforward. Evaluate the gateway experience at the Monroe Institute and determine whether it has practical applications to U.S. military and intelligence community. So, an Army intelligence officer walks into a consciousness lab in rural Virginia, comes back, and writes this. McDonnell starts with the basics. He looks at the established techniques that Gateway is built on. Hypnosis, transcendental meditation, biofeedback. He explains each one, what it does to the brain, how it alters consciousness. And he makes an important distinction. Hypnosis works by planting suggestions. Transcendental meditation works by focusing the mind on a single point until the body enters a deep relaxation. Biofeedback works by giving you real-time data on your own physiological process so that you can learn to control them. Gateway uses elements of all three, but it's fundamentally different because Gateway's primary mechanism isn't suggestion or concentration or data feedback. Remember, it's sound. Specifically the Hemi-Sync technology that Monroe developed. McDonald walks through exactly how it works. You play a frequency of, say, 100 Hz in one ear and 104 Hz in the other. The brain detects the difference, 4 Hz, and it generates a standing wave at that frequency. This is called the frequency following response, or FFR. The brain literally trains itself to match the beat frequency. And because you're feeding different signals to each ear, both hemispheres of the brain start to synchronize. They start producing the same wave pattern at the same time. Now, McDonald points out that this is measurable. Bilateral EEG studies show the generation of high-amplitude, narrow-frequency waveforms that are sweeping throughout the cortex in direct response to these audio signals. So we're out of the realm of speculation. This is actually brain science. And once you've got both hemispheres locked in, the brain enters a state of what McDonald calls coherent oscillation. It starts vibrating as a unified system. And here's where McDonald leaves the neighborhood of conventional neuroscience and walks into uncharted territory for Army intelligence. He says, in order to explain what's actually happening in the gateway state, we need to understand the fundamental nature of reality itself. Section 11 of this report is titled Consciousness and Energy, and this is where the whole thing pivots. McDonald introduces two names: David Bohm, physicist at the University of London; Carl Primbrand, neuroscientist at Stanford. Both are legitimate, respected scientists, and both arrived at the same conclusion from opposite directions. Bohm's theory is that the universe is a hologram, and I mean literally. A hologram is a three-dimensional image produced by the interaction of energy patterns. You know how if you break a holographic plate into pieces, each plate still contains the whole image. That's the key property. The part contains the whole. Bohm says the entire universe works like that. Every piece of it contains information about the totality. He calls this underlying reality the implicate order, a deeper level of existence where everything is embedded into everything else. What we experience as separate objects in space and time is what he calls explicate order, the unfolded version, like a holographic projection. Now, Primbrand comes at it from the other side. He's studying the brain, and he concludes that the brain itself operates like a holographic processor. It doesn't store memories in specific locations like a computer stores files on a hard drive. Memories are distributed across the entire brain, just like a hologram distributes information across the entire plate. McDonald puts two and two together. If the universe is a hologram and the brain is a holographic processor, then consciousness is what happens when one hologram attunes itself to the other. Your mind reads the universal hologram the way a laser reads a holographic plate. And the gateway process, according to McDonald, is the method for tuning that laser, for refining the brain's ability to decode more of the universal hologram than you normally have access to. Sure, that's a pretty wild thing for an Army officer to put in an official report, but McDonald's not done. He's got one more name to introduce, and this one comes with a story. Itzhak Bentov, Israeli-American biomedical engineer, inventor, held patents on medical devices, brilliant guy by all accounts. Bentov developed his own model for how consciousness interacts with the physical universe. He worked directly with McDonald as technical consultant on the report. His work runs through the entire document. The energy models, the oscillation mechanics, the relationship between vibration and consciousness. McDonald cites Bentov more than any other source. And Bentov was supposed to be there when the report was finished, but on May 25th, 1979, he boarded American Airlines Flight 191 at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. It was a DC-10. The engine separated from the wing on takeoff. The plane crashed into an open field less than a mile off the runway. All 271 people on board were killed. It remains the deadliest aviation accident in American history. Bentov was 56. McDonald finished the report without him, but Bentov's ideas are everywhere in it. And the next section of the report, where McDonald uses Bentov's physics to explain how consciousness can leave the body and travel beyond space-time, that's where this document stops being an academic exercise and morphs into something the US government has never been able to explain away. So McDonald's told the Army that the universe is a hologram, the brain is a holographic processor, and consciousness is what happens when the two sync up. And now he's going to explain what happens when consciousness leaves the body. He starts with space and time. Section 18 of that report, titled Time-Space Dimension. McDonald writes that physicists define time as a measurement of energy in motion. It's a measurement of change. And for energy to be in motion, it has to be confined to some kind of vibratory pattern. That confinement is what gives it a specific location, and location is space. So time and space aren't separate things. They're two aspects of the same phenomenon, energy vibrating within boundaries. Got that? Good. Because here's where it gets weird. McDonald introduces a concept from quantum mechanics called Planck's distance. Every oscillating wave, including brain waves, reaches 2 points of complete rest during each cycle. Those rest points are the boundaries of the oscillation, the top of the wave and the bottom. At those rest points, for an infinitesimally brief instant, the energy stops moving. And when it stops moving, according to McDonald, it clicks out of time-space. It just leaves. And for that instant, it joins what McDonald calls infinity. It enters the dimension of the absolute, the underlying reality where there's no time, no space, no boundaries, just consciousness, energy at rest. This happens at a scale below 10 to negative 33 centimeters, which is Planck's distance, the smallest measurable unit of space in physics. And McDonald's argument is that it isn't theoretical. It's happening to subatomic particles all the time. They appear and they disappear. They click in, they click out in observable reality. And physicists have been documenting it for decades. What the gateway process does, according to the report, is train the brain to produce wave patterns so coherent, so refined, that the rest points between oscillations grow longer. More time outside of time-space, more access to the absolute. And if you get skilled enough, you can project your consciousness out of your body entirely. Section 22 is special status out-of-body experience. McDonald writes that once an individual becomes proficient in the out-of-body technique and then breaks out of time-space while already out of his body, he gains the advantage of starting from a point much higher up, meaning less distance to travel to reach deeper dimensions, more time to interact with whatever's out there, and his consciousness begins to entrain its frequency with the new energy environment that it's exposed to, getting more refined with each experience. So McDonald doesn't stop at the out-of-body state. He keeps going. Section 24, from Big Bang to Torus. He uses Bentov's model to describe the shape of the entire universe. And the shape, according to Bentov, is a torus, kind of like a donut, an immense self-contained spiral of energy, matter being ejected from the central point, expanding outward, curving back, falling in on itself, and cycling it through again and again. Bentov bases this on the observed distribution of quasars and the principle that smaller processes in the universe tend to mirror larger ones, the way an electron orbits a nucleus, the way planets orbit the sun. In section 25, Our Place in Time, McDonald writes that our universe appears to be located near the top of that cosmic egg. It's at the point where the matter begins to fall back on itself, which, if you're keeping score, means that according to the US Army intelligence document, we're riding the crest of an expanding holographic torus generated by a cosmic scale version of the Big Bang. And consciousness is the mechanism by which we can perceive and eventually navigate the whole thing. An Army intelligence officer wrote that, submitted it to his commanding officer with a straight face. What do you think of that? And recommendations? Section 38's conclusion is that McDonald writes that there is, quote, a sound, rational basis in terms of physical science parameters for considering gateway to be plausible. He recommends a phased approach for entering the gateway experience in an accelerated mode, and he proposes specific steps. Select participants with experience in transcendental meditation, because they'll progress faster. Establish a schedule of training at the Monroe Institute. Encourage the pursuit of full self-knowledge by all individuals involved, and provide biomonitoring equipment to correlate the subjective experiences with measurable physiological data. In other words, don't just send people to Virginia to lie on mattresses, build an institutional program around it, train people systematically, measure everything, scale it up. That's the recommendation from a lieutenant colonel in Army intelligence. It's in a classified report dated June 9th, 1983. The report gets stamped, filed, and classified. And for 20 years, nobody outside the intelligence community knows it exists until somebody files a Freedom of Information Act request. And what comes back is missing a page. 2003, 20 years after McDonald submitted his report, the CIA declassifies it through the Freedom of Information Act. And for the first time, the public can read what a U.S. Army intelligence officer concluded about the nature of human consciousness. The document gets uploaded to the CIA's electronic reading room. Anyone with an internet connection can download it. 29 pages, 38 sections. It's covering hypnosis, binaural beats, holographic universe theory, out-of-body travel, and the nature of time-space, and a formal recommendation that the U.S. military build an institutional program around all of it. But there's a problem. Page 25 is missing. It's not redacted or blacked out. It's literally not there. People start filing FOIA requests specifically for the missing page. The CIA's response every time is that they don't have it. It's not in the file. They can't produce what they don't possess. So for years, this is a dead end. And then the internet finds the report again. It starts circulating on Reddit around 2017, then TikTok, then Twitter, then everywhere. Millions of people reading a declassified CIA document that says the universe is a hologram and your consciousness can leave your body. And every single one of them hits the same wall. Page 25. What's on it? Why is it missing? Did the CIA remove it deliberately? Is there something on that page that they don't want the public to see? The theories get wild. You can imagine. Some people think it contains the key to the whole gateway technique, the one piece of information that makes everything else work. Some think it describes contact with non-human intelligence. It might be evidence that the government achieved something with Gateway that they're still using and they don't want anyone to know about. And the CIA keeps saying the same thing. We don't have it. 2021, a journalist named Thoby Campion is writing about the Gateway report for Vice. He's done the research, he's read the document, he's hit the same dead end everyone else has. But Campion does something that apparently nobody in 18 years thought to do. He contacts the Monroe Institute, the facility in Faber, Virginia, where all of this started. He asks if they have a copy of that full report. They check their archives. They've got it. Page 25 had been sitting in the Monroe Institute files in rural Virginia the entire time. 18 years, nobody asked. The Monroe Institute emails the page to Campion, he publishes it, and we all want to know what's on it. Well, section 25 continued, and then section 26. Our Place in Time wraps up with McDonald describing the observed distribution of galaxies and what it suggests about our position in Bentlov's cosmic torus model. Then section 26 is titled Quality of Consciousness. McDonald writes about what happens when consciousness projects out of the body, how it can move freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for information acquisition, or even into other dimensions. He discusses how the quality of that projected consciousness determines what it can perceive and interact with. And he writes about self-knowledge. The idea that in order to navigate these expanded states effectively, you need to understand the hologram of yourself that you've projected into the universal hologram. You need to know who you are, your biases, your fears, your energy blockages, because all that shapes what you can perceive when you leave your body. It's not trivial content. It's not the cosmic secret people were hoping for either. It's consistent with the rest of the report. It reads like what it is. The next page. So why was it missing? The CIA's official explanation? A copying error. When the document was scanned for declassification in 2003, page 25 simply wasn't included in the batch. An administrative oversight. 18 years of denied FOIA requests because somebody didn't put a page on the copier. Sounds about right. Now, whether you believe that explanation is up to you, but here's what I think is actually more interesting than what's on page 25. It's what happened after the report was filed, because McDonald didn't just write this thing as a thought experiment. Remember, he wrote it as a recommendation, and the Army acted on it. So what did the Army do with McDonald's recommendation? Well, they'd already been doing it. Remember, Detachment G was sending remote viewers into the Monroe Institute before the report was even finished. The report wasn't the starting gun. It was just the justification, the scientific cover-up for a program that was already operational. And that program, under its various code names, ran for 2 decades. Grill Flame became Center Lane in 1983, Center Lane became Sunstreak in 1986, Sunstreak became Stargate in 1991. Different names, same mission. Use human consciousness as an intelligence collection tool. And the results, according to the people who were in the room, were real. And how about Joseph McMoneagle? Army Chief Warrant Officer, one of the original remote viewers in the program. McMonagle participated in over 450 remote viewing missions between 1978 and 1984. 450! He was designated remote viewer number 001. The Army awarded him the Legion of Merit in 1984, and the citation specifically references his contribution to ideological information that was crucial and vital to national security. That's intelligence gathered through remote viewing, and a Legion of Merit citation from the United States Army. And McMonagle wasn't the only one. The program had multiple viewers operating out of Fort Meade over the years. They were working targets that ranged from Soviet military installations to hostage locations to weapons facilities. So there were two competing approaches to how remote viewing should actually be done. We have a classified memo from March 1984 that lays them out side by side. On one side, the Monroe Institute method. Altered states, the viewer lies on a waterbed in a darkened room. Audio relaxation tapes guide them into a progressively deeper states of consciousness. They gather data in their deep trance. They make sketches and describe the experience at the end of the session. On the other side, SRI International out of Menlo Park, California, the naturalistic approach. The viewer sits at a table, alert, no special technique. A monitor poses a task in a conversational mode. The viewer sketches and verbalizes as they go. No tapes, no trance, no waterbed. Two fundamentally different philosophies about how consciousness works best. Monroe's people said that you need to get into a deep state. SRI's people said that you just need to pay attention. The program used both, and it kept going through the Reagan years, through Bush, into Clinton. By the early 90s, the program's under the umbrella named STARGATE, and it's being managed by the CIA. Shocker. Then in 1995, Congress orders an external review. The American Institute for Research, AIR, gets the contract. They bring in a statistician named Jessica Utz from UC Davis and a skeptic named Ray Hyman from the University of Oregon. Now, Utz concludes that the statistical evidence for remote viewing is significant, that something real is happening that can't be explained by chance. Hyman disagrees. Says the methodology has too many problems to draw firm conclusions. The AIR report splits the difference. It says there might be something to remote viewing statistically, but it hasn't produced actionable intelligence useful enough to justify continued funding. And that's enough. The CIA terminates STARGATE in 1995, 23 years of government-funded psychic research, multiple code names, hundreds of missions, Legion of Merit citations. Done, purportedly. The official position becomes, we looked into it, it didn't pan out, we moved on. Right. Except the Monroe Institute is still there. It's still operating in Faber, Virginia, still running the Gateway Voyage program, still using Hemi-Sync, still talking people through Focus 10, Focus 12, Focus 15, Focus 21. You can book a session right now on their website. If you're curious, it's $2,835 for 5.5 days. Clearly, the price went up since 1983. And McDonald's report, the one that says the universe is a hologram and consciousness can transcend space-time, well, it's still sitting in the CIA's electronic reading room, all 29 pages, including page 25. Anyone can download it, and the question it raises hasn't gone away. If the United States Army concluded in 1983 that human consciousness can leave the body, that the universe is a holographic construct, that time and space are artifacts of energy and motion, and that all of this is supported by established physics, then either the report is wrong or the nature of reality is fundamentally different from what we've been told. The Army spent 23 years and millions of dollars exploring the second option. And when they were done, they didn't say it was nonsense. They said it wasn't useful enough. There's a difference. Now, if you've been watching this channel, you know the pattern. The Collins Elite, a group inside the Defense Intelligence Agency that concluded non-human intelligence is real and has metaphysical implications. We did a video on it. Check it out if you get a chance. MK Ultra, the CIA's 20-year program exploring the boundaries of the human mind through any means necessary. The Moscow Signal, the Soviet microwave beam that was aimed at the US Embassy that the State Department covered up for years because acknowledging it meant acknowledging that electromagnetic energy can affect human consciousness. We did videos on all of them, and the pattern is always the same. The government investigates something at the boundaries of what we understand about the mind. They reach conclusions they can't publicly acknowledge, and they classify the results. The Gateway report sat in classified files for 20 years. When it came out, a page was missing for 18 more, and the conclusion it contains, the human mind can transcend space and time? Well, guess what? Those conclusions have never been formally refuted by the United States government. They never issued a follow-up report saying McDonald was wrong. They never published a rebuttal. They just stop talking about it and hope nobody would notice. 46 million TikTok views later, somebody noticed. Whatever you think about the Gateway Report, the document exists, the program existed, the results were classified, and the questions McDonald raised in 1983 are still unanswered. What is consciousness? Can it exist outside the body? And if the United States Army believed the answer was yes, what does it say about what we think we know? I'm John Genoa. This is America's Strangest History. Thanks for watching.